Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl, Shay Marriott from Rebirth Podcast. Tune in tonight. We are going to be talking about love and liberation just in time for Valentine's Day. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this video.
Out of the ashes we will soar to a destiny we can't ignore. Heartbeats echo through the night with every dream and endless flight. Together strong, let's break the mold. Our rebirth and stories told. It's time to renew, rebuild, restore. Unlock the dreams we've been waiting for. Rise up higher, more and more. With every breath, a new dawn's roar.
Good evening. Welcome to Rebirth Podcast. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm your host, Shay Marriott.
Hello. I haven't done this in 2025. I'm still Corey Wilkerson, the thinker.
What's up, Corey?
What's happening?
Welcome back. Welcome back to the couch.
Welcome back to the couch. Thank you. 2025. I need a couch.
Yeah.
This trial period is
It's
horrible.
been rough already?
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
ready to
man.
restart my subscription.
Okay. All right.
2025
Okay.
is crazy.
What's your word for 2025? Mine is healing.
Yours
What's
is healing?
yours? Yeah.
No, you like to just put fearless.
Fearless. Okay.
Yeah. I think. See how you just put me on the spot that just came to me?
Right.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be fearless.
It's gonna be fearless.
It's gonna be fearless.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, welcome 2025, Fearless and Healing.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you guys for tuning in. If you have not done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to tonight's podcast. Y'all, we're going to be talking about love and liberation. Did you know that your mental health is actually connected to your relationships? Did you know that?
I can see that.
You can see
I
that?
can see that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because when
All
you having a bad day, you don't want to care about no relationship.
Right.
With your kids, nobody. You have a relationship with yourself. So yeah, I understand. That makes sense.
Well,
to me.
people also struggle with having a relationship with themselves.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. See?
So yeah. So we're going to be getting into all of that.
Yeah.
But before we do that, Corey, how's 2025 been going for you?
Oh man. As I said earlier, 2025 is just rough.
Mm-hmm.
Rough. I think it's like January is like the longest year ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think this election, the implications of that, starting the new year,
Right.
Setting your goals.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of it. But I think we get a restart in February, so I think we should be in a good spot. But
Yeah, absolutely.
it just started off rough. It just seems like, and so much stuff that's happening, there's
Mhm.
planes and all. There's so much going on. But
Yeah,
but like you said, we're in a space of healing and being fearless and
absolutely.
pushing through it.
See how those two words just came together?
Yeah. Because fear is not of God,
Right. That's right.
right?
That's right.
So you got to push through it. So welcome to February.
Welcome to February. Absolutely. And I know you guys, I don't know if y'all are just like waking up from your Super Bowl party last night, but whoever you were rooting for, I hope that you enjoyed your time and you had a really good time. Y'all didn't eat too much. Did you have a good time for Super Bowl?
Ate too much, enjoyed it, but ate too much. Yeah, ate too much. I had to suffer through the Kendrick performance.
That's right. You're not a Kendrick Lamar fan.
I like
right?
Kendrick. I'm just
But you
Team
prefer
Drake.
Drake. Drake should have been on the stage.
I'm not saying he should have been on the stage. He just, whatever.
Has Drake done a Super Bowl yet?
He's turned it down twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why?
I just,
You don't know?
I just don't think he wanted to do it. I don't think it was something that he wanted to do, from what I hear.
Mhm.
He's turned it down twice in a few years back. But he is doing the World Cup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the biggest sporting event in the world.
Oh, okay. So you just had
As
to put
opposed
that
to
out
United
there because
States.
Kendrick Lamar just did the Super Bowl.
No shade to Kendrick.
That's what it sounds like.
know what
I
I'm
think you're
saying?
dropping some shade tonight.
We don't want to be not like y'all. We want to do the World Cup.
Okay.
It's about the world.
It's about the world.
Gotta bring the world together.
Okay. Well,
Right.
speaking of bringing people together, we got the Rebirth Meetup.
Yes.
The Rebirth Meetup was a wonderful time. We had a great time last Saturday. If you missed it, guys, I mean, this was our second one. It was a wonderful time. So hopefully next time you guys will be able to make it.
Yes, for
You
sure, for
know, and
sure,
I
for
think we're
sure.
going to bring it back probably the summertime. We'll have another one.
Yeah, these are cool. Like I think
Mhm.
it's not a lot of pressure like the lives, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's just a chance for everybody to kind of get together.
Yeah.
Good music,
Yeah.
trying to
Yes.
learn how to
DJ
these
Just
these
Juan.
these
Yep.
dances are going, and making sure your left is your right,
The
your
boots
right
on
is
the
your left.
ground dance with the
I
fans.
mean, they ain't no boots,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, we had a
yeah,
good
yeah,
time.
yeah,
We
yeah.
had a
That's
good
cool.
time. So thank you everybody for coming out and supporting us at the Rebirth meetup
Absolutely,
on Saturday. It was really a great time, and thank you again to Marketplace Gallery and Sarah for allowing us to host our event there. So,
absolutely.
yeah, it was a great time. So, Black History Month,
Yes.
in celebration of Black History Month. Um, I didn't get a chance to say this to you guys last week. It was the Grammys,
Mm.
and I did another Black History moment with Taraji P Henson, but I forgot to tell you guys that Beyonce, she made history by winning her first album of the year for Cowboy Carter.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes,
what
yes,
did you
yes.
get a chance to listen to that?
The album?
Yeah.
I skipped around it. I think probably
Okay.
the most I heard from it when she
Okay.
did the halftime show in
Mhm.
December.
Mhm.
Um, but Beyonce is one of those once in a lifetime talents that you have, right? Generational
Yeah.
talents they call them, right? And
Mhm.
she can do all things. She can do all things. She's from Texas,
She is.
right? She's from Houston,
Mhm.
right? So I think that is something that she wanted to dip her toe in, and just continue to merge all things that we can do, not only as not I'm a woman, but as women, but also black entertainers,
Right,
right?
right, right, right.
I think it's something as seems like a lot of folks that are singers want to try to jump into different things. I remember K Michelle, her first love is country music,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I think it's something that in her roots Beyonce wanted to kind of dabble in. So she
Yeah.
was successful. I like a couple of tracks on the album, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't
Mhm.
listen to the whole thing because country is
Mhm.
not my thing, but congratulations to her though.
Yeah, so it says that she was the first Black woman in 50 years to win in a country category. Her
Yeah.
album Cowboy Carter not only secured Album of the Year award, but also earned her the Best Country Album and Best Country Duo Group Performance with Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
So, congratulations to Beyonce. The funny thing is, that's always been a big like issue. Remember Kanye West jumped up on stage
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah, yeah.
Taylor Swift
Yeah, for
won
sure.
Album of the
Yeah,
Year?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this has been something that's been going on for some time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
do you think that they kind of just like
I think after
gave it
Jay-Z
to
speech
her?
last year, remember that?
Right,
Jay-Z speech last
right,
year, I
right.
think that and she had a good album. I mean, I think that a
Mhm.
lot of folks appreciated the album. And you think about some of the things that have come out of, I will always say that, we define cool
Mhm.
in the culture. We always
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that some of the dances that are coming out and some of the things, and she just announced her world tour, not her United States tour, her tour. She announced it last week. She announced her Cowboy Carter tour last week. So
She's
she's
doing
going,
another tour?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now this is won't be as big as the other one. So I think
Okay.
it's like 5 selected cities. I think it's Atlanta, Texas. I think Georgia, Texas. She's going to London. So I guess it is international.
Okay.
So she's going to it's like 5 or 6 places that she's going.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's this year. So big deal for her.
Okay.
She know what she's doing. The marketing was
Yeah,
perfect.
she does.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
definitely
yeah, yeah,
does.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
again, congratulations to her. So that's our Black History moment. You ready to get into the show?
I'm ready to get into the show.
All right, y'all. So listen, if you guys ever wondered if your mental health affect your relationships, of course it does.
Yeah,
Of course it does. Your mental health affects everything that you do.
yeah,
Everything that you do, everything that you come in contact with, your mental health affects it, right?
yeah. I can imagine.
So, yeah, so we're going to be talking about how the mental health and relationships are deeply connected, and also just learning how to set boundaries. We'll give you some takeaways before we end tonight, how to set boundaries in those relationships in regards to your mental health, because sometimes we just need that break,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
just kind of reboot ourselves
Yeah. For
so we
sure.
can be healthy and be in healthy
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things that I came across was the emotional well-being,
Yeah. Okay.
right? And how we our dynamics, and how when you're in a good mental space, right, everybody feels that around you,
Yeah.
right?
That's
You ever
true.
been around someone that
They heavy all the
just
time,
heavy
negative.
all the time?
Yeah.
And what is that feeling that you have connected to them when you're in their
You
space?
almost feel like you got to care for it or address it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you almost feel like it takes away from how you're feeling, especially if you're in
Mm-hmm.
a good space. Um, what's wrong with you? Right? And then it becomes about that. Sometimes it feels like the negativity drives out the
Right.
positivity energy in the room,
Right.
right? But I think it goes back to what you were saying. Like you have to have a boundary in that moment with yourself to say either I'm
Yeah.
going to address that
Yeah.
or I'm going to shift the energy in a different type of way. You know what
Right.
I mean? Sometimes
Right.
it's just shifting the room.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the thing about it is we don't realize that when you're not in a good space and someone's asking you, like what's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or, is there anything I can do to help, or how can I support you, or whatever. Most time people don't know what words to put together.
They
They
don't.
don't know how to effectively communicate that I'm not good. I'm
Yeah.
not okay. You know, you may sometimes see a shoulder hunch, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
like,
That's true.
I don't know.
Well, as you said that, I think that we also have to think about before we ask that question, do we have the emotional space to care about it?
Right.
Right? Because you can make it
Right.
worse.
Right.
Like, what's wrong with
Exactly.
you?
Mhm.
Mm, you just have a negative reaction off of that. You just gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
So before you address it, like you have to
Mhm.
think about how do I want to address this? Do I have the emotional
Mhm.
space to take this in,
Mhm.
or care for it in the moment? You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think there's something that we can do with even that. Say, listen, seems like something's going on.
Mhm.
Let's get through the night. We can address
Mhm.
it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. You can however you decide that you want to do it, but
Right.
you have an opportunity to shift the room when those moments happen.
Have you ever ignored it? Like, something was wrong with someone, like you can tell, obviously you could feel the energy,
Hmm.
how have you ever ignored it and just continued on with whatever it was that you and that person was doing?
I'm sure I have, but it depends on the amount of people in the room.
Oh, okay.
Right. So like if there's
Okay.
this one other person in the room and the other person's negative, I
Mhm.
gotta address it. I'm just going
Mm.
to.
Okay.
Right. Because I that's just part of it is just in me to do that. How I care for it is gonna matter, right? Like,
Mhm.
what's going on? You good?
Mhm.
Right? And then if they say no, then I gotta think about how am I gonna carry that energy. But if there's multiple people in the room, sometimes you can play off of somebody else,
Right.
right?
Right.
I was listening to this in preparation for the show tonight. I was listening to this podcast, and they were kind of talking about how he cares for his children, right? When they're in a space,
Mhm.
talking about teenagers. And sometimes he said, you have to just be in the space. And sometimes the space, letting somebody know that you're there for them. And sometimes you just hug. It doesn't have to, you have to address it
Right.
directly,
Right.
right? Sometimes just letting somebody know that you see them, you're there for them, and move on, right? And
Mhm.
address it later. So
Mhm.
sometimes we think we got to swallow everything. Like
Right.
we got to take it on and we got to solve the problem.
Mhm.
It ain't ask you to solve nothing.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just an inappropriate
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? Like, if you're asking somebody, well, what's wrong, and you're harping on that, and that person is like really just trying to get through
Yeah. It's true.
whatever that situation is,
Mhm.
then you can bring up emotions
Yes.
that may cause that person to just really have a mental break
For
right in
sure.
front of, you and whoever else is around,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I think, just being mindful of that, and your emotional well-being is going to be important.
Yeah. I
What's the
agree.
next one? You got the next one?
So the next one is attachment styles
Mhm.
and past trauma. Early childhood experience shape how we connect with others, which is so true.
Absolutely.
Which is so true. Um,
Absolutely.
because I think again, it's we've seen this before. A lot of this stuff is a repeat, right?
Mhm.
And we've seen this either with our parents, we've seen this with our spouses, we've seen this with our aunts and uncles and grandmoms. And sometimes we see certain things and we have triggers
Mhm. Mhm.
that happen to us and we respond based off of what we've seen from other people.
Yeah.
We respond based off of what's comfortable for us,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes that could be a complete violation of the issue and make it worse,
Mhm.
right? Or sometimes we would respond to it in a positive way that negatively affects the situation, where people will say, "Well, you ignoring what I'm saying, or
Right.
you just gonna keep going on like nothing's wrong,"
Right.
right? So they almost will
Right.
chase you with their issue.
Mhm.
But I think it's important that we have to understand, like, this kind of says, like, what is your attachment style?
Mhm.
How does this matter? But sometimes you just have to be in the moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everything doesn't always have to be as big as we make it.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to be in the moment because the attachment style or what we've used to in the past may change based off of the person in the room,
Yep.
right? And I
Yep.
think that we have to sometimes detach from what we've been taught because it doesn't mean it was always right.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
you have to unlearn. Yeah. There's a lot
Mm,
of things that you and I actually talked about that on last week's show. There was a lot of things that I needed to learn when it came down to being a black woman,
mhm.
right? And who am I as a black woman? Because society wants to define and tell you who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to look like and all of these other things, right?
Yeah.
Growing up,
Mhm.
you know, I didn't see beautiful black women on TV like that. Their ideal of beautiful was always a white woman. Yeah, yeah,
For real?
yeah.
Oh,
You didn't see that on TV?
I mean, I seen Pam Grier.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
So
fine.
you named one black woman
No,
on
I got
TV
plenty of
from
them.
back then.
But you're right though. But you're right.
Yeah,
I think that we even how our black women looked was
absolutely.
depicted on how white women
The
looked, right?
Europeans,
Whether it's the
right.
hair or whether it's the
Absolutely.
complexion, light
Yeah.
versus dark, right? The
Yeah.
roles that you played, right? So yeah, you're
Mhm.
absolutely right.
Yep,
Absolutely right. I went
absolutely.
back to, like,
You
yeah, I went a different place.
you must have had a crush on Pam Grier cuz you told
Still got a crush on Pam Grier. I see her in Wawa tomorrow, boy.
I can't with you.
But you're absolutely right, and I think
Mhm.
secure attachment leads to healthy, trusting relationships. With anxious or avoidant attachment can lead to insecurity and
Yes.
fear of abandonment,
Yes.
or emotional detachment.
Yeah.
Right. So I think those things are, we have to just really be conscious of
Mhm.
all of those things. And I also wonder, do we also know what some of these things mean? The first time we
Mhm.
introduce those themes are introduced to us
Mhm.
could be in an unhealthy way.
Mhm.
Right? So when you hear attachment style,
Mhm.
where do you get that from? You're hearing it from a podcast, you hear it from somebody that doesn't know how to explain those things to you,
Mhm.
right? So it's also what you take in, how you
Mhm.
take in this information, right? Because you may be able to explain it to me in a way that I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, let me go invest more into that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Attachment styles come from psychology,
Mhm.
right? So, and again, I think it's important, and you guys can actually you can Google attachment style test,
Yeah,
and you can actually take the test and learn what your attachment style is, because I think everybody should understand what their attachment style is, because it will help you navigate your relationships
for sure.
better.
Yeah,
And I'm not just talking about your romantic relationships. I'm talking about all of your
yeah,
relationships, even your relationships with your children.
yeah, yeah,
You know, uh that came about by a baby and a mother,
yeah,
you know, and that's where your attachment is formed as a child, early as a baby, if that baby is going to form a bond with that mom,
yeah.
right? So they did a whole experience on that. And I'm not going to do a psychology class tonight, but that is something that I think that everybody should take a look at and learn, if you are avoidant, anxious, secure attachment, because I think it will help you understand not only you as a person, but how you show up in your relationships.
Yeah. And I think it leads to the next point. Unhealed trauma can create patterns of codependency,
Mhm.
self-sabotage, or difficulty trusting
Mhm.
others.
Yeah.
Right. And those things bleed down.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Because we only know what we see.
Right.
Right. Or
Right.
we see what we repeat. And when you consistently see those things repeated, that could potentially become an issue. How you deal with
Mm-hmm.
relationships, how you deal with heartbreak, or how you deal with difficult situations, that matters for sure.
How you deal with trauma,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you know a lot of our people, black and brown,
Mm-hmm.
don't realize or are they have a harder time identifying trauma
Mm-hmm.
because they've turned trauma into their normalcy.
Yeah.
It's normal. This is normal. This is what we go through. This is what my mom went through. This is what my grandmother went through. So they don't even realize that it's trauma.
Yeah. I got a question on that. As you say
Mm-hmm.
that, right? So, do you think that for our community, sometimes it's just the simple label of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or because I think we sometimes have a difficulty just being labeled. Period. We've been labeled so much
Mm-hmm.
in a negative way. It's hard for us to take that in and do something with that. Trauma, it's not trauma, like you said. It's something that I've always seen, and this is what it is. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be that, right? So how do we go about, number one, recognizing that and taking that in, and actually being able to action and do something with that, right? Because you have to. I don't know. Sometimes, like I've seen people, this you hear that word trauma, and they automatically just get defensive based off of
Mm-hmm.
that. Because again, we've been labeled as so many different things that are not necessarily we're so many things as a black and brown
Mm-hmm.
culture, and a lot of the things that we've either put on ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because sometimes we're our own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
um and we have unhealthy relationships with um dealing with trauma. We have unhealthy relationships with dealing with conflict resolution,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes conflict doesn't mean bad. It could mean something good that you're trying to solve for. It could be a goal, right, that you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to reach. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think that we have to really get down to, and we talked about 2025. You've seen some of these debunking of DEI, right? You think about some of these things that are happening where they're affecting our community.
Right, right.
Um, More important than ever. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we say that every year. We really need to get to the business of healing and supporting and helping each other, because these next 4 years are going to be a long 4 years.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know what
It's
I mean?
already long. We ain't even
It is.
we just got through January and it feel like it's been five
For
years.
sure. For
So
sure. For sure.
yeah. So to answer your question, trauma is not a label
Hmm.
on a person, is something that someone has experienced.
Hmm.
And we all experience trauma, no matter what ethnicity, culture you come from. We all
Hmm.
experience trauma. The problem is not being we don't identify that it's some people just don't know that it's traumatic,
Hmm.
that they just experienced something traumatic, right? You're driving your car,
Hmm.
right? And all of a sudden the car in front of you starts to flip and crash into another car.
Yeah.
You just experienced something traumatic,
Hmm.
right? Um, do you go on with the rest of your day? Yeah, you probably will. But would that thought come back up for you? Yeah, it will come back up for you. Will it affect you? It may or may not. May or may not, right?
Yeah.
And if it did, then you might feel a little bit more anxious when you're driving,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Perfect example, when the bridge crashed in
Maryland. Yeah.
Maryland,
Yeah.
right? um I noticed just watching it
Hmm.
on the news that when I go over the Delaware
Hmm.
Memorial Bridge,
Yeah.
I get a little I don't feel really good in my
Yeah.
stomach.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like I feel that. I feel a little anxious. And I immediately just try to start taking deep breaths and try to focus on something else, something positive, and not actually what I'm doing right now in this moment,
Yeah.
which is going across the bridge,
Yeah. For
right?
sure.
So, and again, I it wasn't a personal experience, right? I never been on a bridge and it crashed, obviously, but just watching it on the news, which has caused some me to feel anxious,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this is where we talk about secondhand trauma,
Hmm.
right? COVID. When you look at the doctors and the nurses and how they was overworking, and even with us with the mental health therapists, and we're constantly seeing people bodies and all that stuff that they were showing on the news. I told my clients, stop watching the news,
Yeah.
stop,
Yeah.
because it's trauma,
Yeah.
and you start to make that your own,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now we're seeing planes like every week
Mm-hmm.
since January, the beginning of January, falling out of sky,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're watching that and you got some flights to take in the next couple months, like I do,
Yeah.
right? It that can be traumatic,
For sure. For sure.
So just things like that, people don't realize that that's trauma. So they come into the office, it's like, hey, I've been feeling a little anxious. I'm having this anxiety. I don't know where it's coming from. And something like that can bring you into therapy.
Yeah.
And if I say to you, is there any history of trauma? You're not going to tell me, I was watching the news and I've seen these planes falling, and it's triggered me. It
Yeah.
stirred something up. Because you're not going to know that that's trauma
Mm-hmm.
or secondhand trauma.
Yeah.
You're not going to look at it that way.
Yeah. For
Right.
sure.
So I think that being able to identify and understand, what it is. And I think the key thing is, when did your symptoms start?
Mm-hmm.
When did you notice, something different about yourself? But if you really think about it, Black and brown, we were born into trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember one of these interviews Tupac did, and he just talk about police brutality and some of the things that go on, which is timeless because we still deal with it today. He said, the folks that y'all go out and protect and lock up,
Mm-hmm.
they live next door to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know the murderers or the drug dealers or the domestic violent abusers or the people that we live with them in the same building, right?
Yeah.
Some of them we grew up with, right? We step over the addicts to go to the bus. We walk past the covers draped over bodies when we go to school, right? So sometimes this stuff is normal to us. So for us, I also challenge, like, how do we deal with this? Because I also am a person that believes that if we fix what's going on in our house, that's part of how we can contribute to that, right? So how do you, when you're dealing with a certain type of normalcy, how do you change that in your house? Because we all deal with the same type of thing, right? And it's generational. This is not like millennials are dealing with it, right? They deal with it differently. But at the end of the day, how do we address some of these things in your house? Because we're still human beings too.
We are still human
Right.
beings. Yeah.
And then, but I think that's where your attachment style comes in. Do you avoid it? Do you address it immediately? God help you. You're a therapist, right? So I'm sure people be like, "Oh God, don't therapize me," right? Right. Which could be a thing. And I'll say it, maybe unpopular opinion. And I think that sometimes we got to put action behind some of the things that we do. Sometimes we're very accustomed also to throwing church at everything. Or we just pray about it. Still in a room, still in the bathroom, still in the kitchen. It still leaves your house day in and day out. What are we doing about that? Are we addressing some of those things? Yeah.
Or the opposite, we don't
talk about it at all. 100%.
We don't talk about it
100%.
at all.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So and when you're only able to do what you can in your home. You can control that environment, right? But let's think about the kids that live in the neighborhoods where what you just described. They walk out and it's nothing to see a dead body down the street or on their way to school, and it's desensitizing, right? It's desensitizing. And I mean, even with the video games, the video games are desensitizing kids to violence, right? Because they're on it and they're playing it all the time. So it's normal for them, right? But when it comes down to someone coming outside, inside the home, their environment is controlled. But when you come outside of your home, if you're in an area where it's always violence, that's out of your control, right? And it's like, and this is where it's really hard, because it's like you got to put Band-Aid band-aids on this,
Hmm.
because I as a therapist, I can't fix the environment that you live in.
Yeah.
I only could give you tools and skills to cope with it
Hmm.
until you're able to make another decision for yourself, or you're
Yeah.
old enough as a kid, if you're
Mhm.
old enough to make another decision, right? So some of the things we can't fix is just simply giving you the skills and on how to maneuver, you know, or live alongside of it,
Yeah.
if you will.
Well, side note to that, though, I mean, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. You're raising two black men,
Thank you. I
right?
appreciate
So
that.
when they go out in society, they are contributing in a positive way, right?
Yeah.
Um, they may be the person that's holding the door for somebody, or
Right.
has a kind word,
Right.
or doesn't react to things that are going on around them because they have a support system at home,
Right.
right? So that's fixing it. Or even when they go
Yeah.
outside, because they may not engage,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes we have other folks that we are used to engaging because we're
Mhm.
having such a horrible home life,
Mhm.
right? We don't know what our next meal is going to look like when we leave out the
Right.
house, right?
Right.
So when you see something, you know what? I'm just looking for something to happen
Yeah.
to piss me off, right?
Yeah.
So hats off to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
Same to you though. You
yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're an amazing parent,
Yeah.
right? So you got boy and a girl.
I do. I do. I do. I do.
So same to you. So number 5 is empowerment and growth. Being in a healthy relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or family, can empower you to grow, heal, and become the best version of yourself. So, being able to prioritize your mental health is so important
Yeah.
in order to be able to walk into that, right? It helps you show up fully in your relationships, leading to deeper connection and a a mutual support. So, of course, when we talk about these topics, we're not just talking about them. We want to put a call to action for you guys. We want you guys to walk away with something um, that can help you, and you can implement that into your life, into your relationships. Um, so let's talk about setting some of the boundaries to protect your mental health and the relationships.
So I think that from a boundary perspective, it's I think we talked about it earlier. Is like it's learning to say no is a complete sentence,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to practice pause. Is something
Mm-hmm.
else that I would always say too, right? I think that we are um everything doesn't have to be handled right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And understanding that for not only for ourselves but for the environment that we're around, that we have to always make sure that we are caring for ourselves,
Right.
which is super important because I don't think we do a good
Mm-hmm.
job of that. We think we do, but I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
we do a good job at protecting ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing the spaces that we're in, and do I want to engage? Do I have the capacity to handle? I know I struggle with not responding to my phone.
Mm.
Right, somebody texts, somebody calls. Can you chat? 95% of the time, I'm gonna say yes, even if I don't have it in me to do that.
Mm.
Right, so I'm practicing.
Why? Why do you do that?
I think it probably has everything to do with not everything, some but to do with like childhood, right?
Mhm.
Like I've suffered from like abandonment issues too.
Mhm.
You don't want anybody else to feel that way,
Mhm.
right? You also want to care for people how you want to be cared for. Like if I need something, you want people to respond,
Mm.
right? So you will jump out the window like, what do you need? I got it, right?
Mhm.
Um, because those are the type of things sometimes you always hear like in relationships, you have to love the person the way they want to be, not the way you want to be,
Mhm.
right? With the love languages and all of those type of things. And sometimes
Right.
we will not take the oxygen mask and put it on ourselves first. We want to put it on everybody else.
Right.
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 So, me being responsive, which has the reverse effect because the moment that I just really don't have it,
Mhm.
you always respond. I
Mhm.
know you got your phone, da, 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 which makes you drain even more. Right.
Mhm.
So, if I'm trying to find with the balance is inside of that. I did hear something today that was very profound. We talk about balance in boundaries. Like life is about balance, whether
Mhm.
it's professional or personal, things like that. And the gentleman said, I live a very unbalanced life.
Mm.
If everything's balanced, nothing gets the correct attention.
Hmm.
Right. So what are your priorities? Right. It's my faith, my
Mhm.
family, my goals, me working out. Those are my four.
Mhm.
Everything else falls under that. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm balanced, then everybody gets the same priorities, and then I'm unbalanced because I don't know what to grab first. Right.
Mhm.
Which I thought it was a unique way of putting that.
Yeah,
Right.
it is.
Yeah. So
It definitely is.
I thought that was super important. And really sometimes just writing these things out and saying, like,
Mhm.
what is my, it sounds corny and cliche, but those are the things that help.
It definitely helps
Yeah.
because you can't keep everything in your head,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And this is what causes insomnia too.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I always tell people to do brain dumps before you go to bed. If you can't sleep, try to do a brain dump. Make sure everything that you're thinking about,
Mm,
just put it on paper. You don't have to be in no type of order. Just put it on a piece of paper,
mm.
or type it into your phone, and then take your butt to bed.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
our thoughts will keep us
It
going.
will. It will.
Especially if we have a busy day that next day. It's just like I got all of these things to do.
Yeah.
Well, those things are going to keep you up through the
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
One of the things I've learned to do, I pray for a peaceful sleep.
hmm,
I'll legit ask God, say, like, I need to sleep.
yeah,
Give me peace.
yeah,
And
that's it.
like
And he
usually you knock.
does,
Yeah,
right?
and he does. Um
So I'm gonna sprinkle a little peace on you this
yeah,
morning.
yeah, yeah. Right? Like I got it. Like, and you sometimes you read
Uh-huh.
these. I'm a quote God too. Like, God's
Mm-hmm.
like, I got it. Like, go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So those things matter.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, guys, I want to give you a couple things to think about before we wrap up when it comes down to setting boundaries and um just making sure you're surrounding yourself around good supportive people. So recognize and release the guilt, right? Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it is self-care. And I always say self-full. I think I have a hoodie that says that.
Hmm.
Self-full, it's okay to be self-full.
Hmm.
um and that's just simply just taking care of yourself
Yeah.
sometimes, right? So like with you, the example that you gave, how you feel like you have to pick up the phone or you have to respond because you don't want in your mind it is connected to abandonment or
Hmm.
someone feeling abandoned, and that's something that you have felt at
Yeah.
one point,
Hmm.
right? But it doesn't mean that that person that's on the other side of the phone that's trying to reach you is going to feel that same thing.
For sure.
But that's what we do. We'll
Hmm.
take what our experience has been and
Hmm.
we'll make it everybody's
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
right? And then you find yourself on E. So it's okay to be self full.
Hmm.
Put your phone on do not disturb like I do.
Yeah. That's
My
funny.
phone stays on do not
Yeah.
disturb,
Yeah.
right? And I have certain people that can get through
Hmm.
when it's that, and that's those are my sons. But
Hmm.
outside of that, if I need to take that moment, I need to take that
At the
moment.
moment.
I'll get
Yeah.
back to you,
Yeah. For sure.
you know? So that's going to be important. And again, surrounding yourself around supportive people, that helps build healthy relationships, and people that's going to respect your boundaries.
Yeah.
I can't be around people that's not going to respect my boundaries. Just
Hmm.
not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Right.
Very true.
And with that being said, if you're not respecting my boundaries, then there's what? There's a consequence.
Yeah.
And what does that consequence look like?
Yeah.
Right. So it depends on, you know, what you want to put out there.
Yeah. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
There's a consequence. So.
Consequence. Yeah. And if someone constantly, repeatedly disregards your boundaries, I think it's time to really think about if that person should really be in your life
Mm.
at that point, right? Because if I have a boundary place and you constantly disregarding it, that's disrespectful,
Absolutely.
right? So now I have to reevaluate that relationship.
Yeah. So they're basically telling you their needs are more important than
Mm-hmm.
yours. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
very true.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do you have a certain time where you won't check emails or you won't check? Well, no, because you just said that you feel the need to respond.
Well, email, yeah. After
Uh-huh.
after
Mm-hmm.
4:30, it's over. I
Mm-hmm.
may spot check, but like I don't respond to
Okay.
let's say emails or anything like that.
Okay.
I've learned to find balance when it comes to work,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that's important. You know what I mean? I think that you have to have time for you. And you have
Mm-hmm.
to have time for the things that are important to you whether that be goals or family or
Yeah.
yourself. So from a work perspective, I've learned how to find that balance with work. Um, and then, still trying to work through how to prioritize your own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But yeah, after a certain time, work is over.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so
Okay. Stop overcommitting. I had to learn that. I had to learn that, right? Because now I'm tired. I'm burnt out.
yeah,
I'm not being 100%,
yeah.
with family. I'm walking around with an attitude. Why? Because I overcommit myself.
Hmm.
And now I got to go to this event that I know I didn't want to go to when I was asked to go to it. And I
Hmm.
said yes
And you
anyway.
say yes.
Right. So that's something that I had to learn.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like I truly overcommitted myself last year. And
Hmm.
I said I wasn't going to do that this year. There were great things,
Yeah. Mm.
because even good things still can feel like you just overly committed. You're
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah. For sure.
Right. So overcommitting and sabotaging is another one that comes up as
Hmm.
well. Hopefully you guys are writing this down, because we don't realize that we do these things,
Yeah.
in our relationships with others and in our relationships with ourselves as well.
Yeah.
um and then the last one that I would say is just be consistent, and whatever it is that you're doing, be consistent about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
And I think the other I would add is this: what is your reevaluation periods and through
mhm.
the year, right? It's like sometimes you have to reevaluate what your boundaries are because they change,
Yeah, they
right?
do
Like they
change.
may change,
They do
right? They
change.
may change
Mhm.
based off of your goals. They may
Mhm.
change based off of your environment, your friends.
Right.
So definitely recommit to evaluating what your boundaries are
Yeah, for
and where you
sure.
are at life and where you need to change and pivot and move.
For sure.
Yeah,
For
for sure.
sure. Yeah. So that's it, guys. That's all we have for you. So hopefully that was helpful when it comes down to, love and liberation. I think if you learn to first have a healthy relationship with yourself first, then that can transcend to having healthy relationships with the people in your life that,
Yeah, agreed.
yeah.
Agreed. I think I don't know whether it gets easier as you get older.
I think it does.
Yeah, I think
I do,
yeah,
man.
you just get older. You're just like, I don't give a. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I don't really care
It's
about.
like the things that you thought that really mattered, or the people that you thought you needed to impress.
Hmm.
That that changes after. For me, it changed after 40. Right? It was just like, yeah, I'm not doing this
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So
Mine's cracked at 42.
42.
I was like, oh,
Okay.
yeah,
Wait till
yeah,
you hit 50.
yeah. I really ain't gonna care then. That's funny.
But it's a sweet spot.
It
It's
is.
it's a really good place to be in,
It is.
right? And I think the only thing is, I'm like, man, why couldn't I, this person that I am now, why couldn't I have been that person in my 20s and in my 30s, right?
Mm,
Why did I have to wait until, this second half of my life to
yeah,
really walk in um my power now,
yeah.
versus being able to have all of that at 20 and 30,
You know
right?
what? Because what's so interesting about that though, those indicators in there, those moments of reflection were there in your 20s and 30s. We just ignored them, or we felt like we
Mhm.
were
They
fearless,
wasn't
overcome.
developed.
No, but that you've seen moments where
Yeah.
boundaries were crossed and you didn't like it. It didn't feel
It
good,
didn't feel good.
right? You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Or you saw people moving a certain type of way that didn't
Mhm.
move in your ethics, right? Or your
Mhm.
your moral high ground. You're like, right? But you just felt like you could just always
Mhm.
overdo it, right? You
Mhm.
stayed at work 2 hours late consistently. You're like, I'm exhausted, but you
Mhm.
didn't stop, right?
Mhm.
So those things are usually there, and there's indicators there, but we just keep pushing
Yeah.
past. You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that was good.
It was
That
good.
was
It
good.
was
Good
good.
good conversation. Thank you for sitting on the yellow couch tonight.
First time in 2025. Absolutely, I love the little couch. Cool.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you have not done so, please make sure that you subscribe to our podcast. It's so important, and it helps us bring, good content to you every week. So we appreciate you joining us. And again, make sure you like, share this with someone that needs it, right? I think we all need this right now, especially with how 2025 has been going thus far. But just remember, remember your faith, just remember that um, you can always reach out to get therapy if you need that. It's nothing wrong with doing that. It's okay. And make sure when you do decide to pick up that phone to call, um you are connected with someone that you feel comfortable with. It's important, right? Don't you agree
Yeah,
that it's
100% important.
important that you're comfortable with your
Yeah.
therapist? So I always tell people to interview your therapist.
Mhm.
Interview them, and just make sure that this is someone that you really feel comfortable with sitting in front of, and that the conversation feels good to you.
Yeah, and I read something that said I think on average you go through 3 before you
Yeah.
find the right one.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? So
Right.
don't get turned off on the first or second. Like, oh, this doesn't
Right.
work. You have to, like you said, interview your therapist.
Yeah.
They have to be a good fit for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. So again, thank you again tonight for tuning in. We appreciate you. Um, Tune in every Monday at 7 p.m. And I will see you next Monday.
See y'all later.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.